Sarah Martinez stood before the towering crystal spires of the Galactic Academy of Xenobiology, clutching her tablet close to her chest. The morning light of 3 suns filtered through the atmosphere shields, casting rainbow patterns across the Academy's pristine white walkways. She took a deep breath of the carefully regulated air mixture and straightened her uniform, making sure her Earth insignia was clearly visible. "Remember," she whispered to herself, pulling up a holo image of Mr. Whiskers, her Maine Coon cat. "They've never seen anything like you before." The image showed her beloved pet sprawled across her bed back home, his magnificent tail draped over a pile of quantum physics textbooks. Inside the classroom, Professor Zixvon was attempting to maintain their professional composure. Their color spots flickered between nervous purple and excited green as they adjusted the environmental controls one final time. The professor had spent decades teaching xenobiology to students from across the galaxy, but this was their first time working with humans. Deathworlders. The very word made their sensory tendrils quiver. "Class," Professor Zixvon's translator hummed to life, converting their harmonic vibrations into standard galactic basic. "Today marks a historic moment for our institution. We welcome our first human students to the Cultural Exchange Symposium." The classroom was a marvel of sinological engineering. Crystalline pods housed aquatic species in their preferred solution mixtures. Hover platforms accommodated those who couldn't survive in standard gravity. Environmental bubbles protected species with unique atmospheric requirements. Every accommodation had been carefully considered, except, perhaps, for the simple chair provided for the human student. Sarah entered the classroom with the characteristic human stride that made several students flinch, the quick, purposeful movement that marked her species as persistent hunters. She smiled, and a few of her classmates reflexively activated their defensive mechanisms. The gelatinous delegation rippled anxiously. The Methan brothers' containment suits whirred as they adjusted their comfort settings. "Good morning," Sarah said, her voice warm and steady. "I'm Sarah Martinez from Earth, and I'm here to share something very special from our world. We call them pets." Professor Zixvon's translator struggled with the word, eventually settling on voluntary creature companions. The class's universal translators produced similar variations, causing a wave of confused chirps, clicks, and vibrations. Specifically, Sarah continued, pulling up a new holo image, "I'd like to tell you about Mr. Whiskers." The image materialized in the center of the room, a magnificent Maine Coon cat in all his glory. 4 kilos of muscle, fur, and predatory grace, captured mid-stretch. Several students immediately engaged their emergency shields. One of the Methan brothers fell off their hover platform. "Oh no, please don't be alarmed." Sarah rushed to explain, which only made things worse as her quick movement triggered more defensive responses. "Mr. Whiskers is completely safe. He's my companion, my friend. Look." She cycled to the next image. Mr. Whiskers curled up in her lap, purring while she studied. The purring sound, picked up by the holo recording, caused Professor Zixvon's color spots to turn white with shock. "That vibration," the professor's translator quavered, "is your companion trying to hypnotize you." Sarah couldn't help but laugh, which at least confused her classmates enough to lower their defensive shields. No. Purring is how cats show contentment. It's actually very soothing. They do it when they're happy, or sometimes when they're trying to heal. Heal. The professor's spots shifted to a curious blue. "Your companion has medical capabilities." "Well, there are studies suggesting that the frequency of cat purrs can promote tissue regeneration and bone density," Sarah explained. "But mostly, Mr. Whiskers just likes to sit with me and keep me company while I study. He's very affectionate." The class erupted in a cacophony of translated questions, their initial fear giving way to fascinated disbelief. Professor Zixvon's color spots settled into an intrigued pattern of blue and green. Perhaps, they thought, this cultural exchange would be more enlightening than anyone had anticipated. The holoscreen flickered as Sarah switched to her next image, showing Mr. Whiskers stalking a toy mouse across her family's living room. His muscles rippled under his thick fur, eyes focused with predatory intensity that made several of the aquatic students sink deeper into their crystalline pods. "This is how cats play," Sarah explained cheerfully, seemingly oblivious to the waves of anxiety rippling through the classroom. "They retain their hunting instincts, but they use them for entertainment and exercise. The toy mouse has catnip inside, which is an herb that cats find stimulating." "You?" Professor Zixvaughn's translator crackled with disbelief. "You deliberately stimulate their hunting responses." Their color spots swirled with a mix of horror and fascination. Sarah nodded enthusiastically. "It's important for their mental health. Indoor cats need enrichment activities to stay happy and healthy. Here, look at this next clip." The holovid changed to show Mr. Whiskers scaling the side of Sarah's bookshelf, casually defying gravity in a way that made the low-gravity species in the classroom vibrate with nervous resonance. "Your companion can manipulate gravitational fields?" asked a hovering student from the methane-breathing delegation, their environment suit wearing as they drifted further from the display. "Oh no, cats are just excellent climbers. They can scale vertical surfaces and always land on their feet. It's all natural ability." Sarah's proud tone did nothing to reassure her classmates. They have an amazing sense of balance and flexible spines that help them reorient themselves during falls. Professor Zixvaughn's spots paled again. "And you permit this creature to roam freely in your dwelling?" "Of course. Mr. Whiskers has the run of the house. He even sleeps on my bed." Sarah pulled up another image, this one showing the massive Maine Coon sprawled across her pillows, taking up most of the sleeping space. The gelatinous delegation rippled in a pattern that their translators rendered as nervous laughter. "You enter a state of unconsciousness in the presence of this predator." "Well, yes. Actually, it's really comforting. He keeps my feet warm, and his purring helps me sleep." Sarah's expression turned thoughtful. "You know, cats were once worshipped as gods in ancient Earth civilizations, especially in Egypt." The professor's translator made a sound like a small explosion. "Your species elevated predatory creatures to divine status." "It's more complicated than that," Sarah hurried to explain, pulling up some historical images she'd included in her presentation. Cats were valued for their ability to protect grain stores from rodents, which could spread disease and cause famine. They were seen as protectors. The classroom burst into a chorus of translated exclamations as the historical footage showed ancient Egyptian art depicting cats hunting snakes and rats. The Methane Brothers' suits collectively released stress-venting gases, creating a brief haze in their corner of the room. "So your species," Professor Zixvaughn's spots had settled into a pattern indicating deep thought, "deliberately formed an alliance with a predatory species for mutual benefit." "Exactly." Sarah beamed. "And over thousands of years, that relationship evolved into one of companionship. Cats became part of our families. We bred them to be more sociable while maintaining their natural abilities. Here, let me show you my favorite video." The holoscreen displayed Mr. Whiskers curled up with Sarah's young cousin, who was recovering from a minor surgery. The massive cat was gentle, carefully positioned to avoid the child's bandages, his loud purrs clearly audible through the recording. A profound silence fell over the classroom. Even the most anxious students leaned forward slightly, watching as the fearsome predator demonstrated unexpected gentleness. "Remarkable," Professor Zixvaughn whispered, their color spots showing a complex pattern never before seen in their species, the beginning of a fundamental shift in understanding. "Truly remarkable." Marcus Chen stepped up to the presentation area as Sarah took her seat, his confident posture causing another ripple of unease through the alien students. The holoscreen behind him flickered to life, displaying an image of a magnificent German shepherd standing alertly beside him. "This is Luna," Marcus announced proudly, his hand unconsciously moving as if to pat the holographic dog's head. "She's a German shepherd, and she's been my partner since she was 8 weeks old. But before I tell you about her, I need to tell you about wolves." Professor Zixvaughn, still processing the revelations about cats, watched their students' biological indicators spike as the holoscreen shifted to show a pack of wolves hunting in coordination. The gelatinous delegation merged into a defensive cluster. "You see," Marcus continued, his voice carrying the warmth of a storyteller, "humans didn't start with dogs. We started with wolves. Over thousands of years, we formed a partnership that changed both species forever." The screen split to show comparative images: wolves hunting alongside early humans, ancient cave paintings of canines, and finally, Luna performing an agility course with Marcus. The Methane brothers' suits weared in what their translators indicated was astonishment. "Are you suggesting," Professor Zixvaughn's spots flickered rapidly, "that your species intentionally modified another apex predator to create companions?" "Modified is a bit simple," Marcus smiled. "We co-evolved. Dogs developed the ability to read human facial expressions, understand our pointing gestures, and even interpret our emotional states. In return, we provided food, shelter, and partnership." He switched to a video of Luna responding to hand signals. "Watch this." The class observed in stunned silence as Luna moved through a complex series of commands without Marcus speaking a word. She responded to subtle hand movements, changing direction, speed, and position with precise control. "That's impossible," chirped one of the avian students, their feather scales bristling. "No predator species would submit to such control." Marcus shook his head. "It's not about control. It's about trust and cooperation. Luna doesn't obey me because she has to. She works with me because she wants to. We're partners." He switched to another video, this one showing Luna playing with his younger sister. "Dogs have evolved to be incredibly gentle with human puppies, children." The video showed Luna carefully taking a toy from the little girl's hand, her massive jaws delicately avoiding any contact with the child's fingers. Several students who had inched forward in curiosity quickly retreated. "But here's what makes dogs truly special," Marcus continued, bringing up a new hologram. "They understand us on a level that even our closest primate relatives don't. They can interpret our emotions, anticipate our needs, and even help us survive." The screen displayed a montage: search and rescue dogs locating survivors in rubble, guide dogs leading visually impaired humans, therapy dogs comforting patients, and police dogs apprehending criminals. Your species sends predators to capture other humans. The professor's translator couldn't quite capture the complex harmonics in their voice. "Only those specially trained for law enforcement," Marcus explained. "But that's just one aspect. Dogs help us find lost people, detect diseases, support those with disabilities, and even predict seizures. They've evolved alongside us to become not just companions, but partners in every aspect of human life." He concluded with a final image: Luna sleeping at the foot of his bed, one ear still perked up alertly. "This is what 40,000 years of trust and cooperation looks like. Luna isn't just my pet. She's my friend, my protector, and my family." The classroom remained silent for a long moment before Professor Zixvaughn's spots settled into a pattern indicating deep contemplation. "Mr. Chen," they said finally, "I believe you have just redefined our understanding of symbiotic relationships." Professor Zixvaughn stood before the Academy's Research Council, their color spots shifting between excited green and scholarly bronze. The chamber's crystalline walls reflected the light from dozens of environmental suits and containment pods as the galaxy's leading xenobiologists gathered for an emergency session. "Esteemed colleagues," they began, their translator working overtime to convey their complex harmonics, "what we've discovered about human-animal relationships challenges everything we thought we knew about predator-prey dynamics." The holoscreen behind them displayed compiled footage from Sarah and Marcus' presentations. Mr. Whiskers grooming Sarah's hair played alongside Luna performing complex commands, causing a ripple of astonished movements through the assembled scientists. "Surely," vibrated Dr. X427, their gelatinous form undulating skeptically, "this is some form of technological control. Neural implants, perhaps." Sarah, who had been invited to observe the proceedings, cleared her throat politely. "Actually, sir, the only technology involved is a squeaky mouse toy and some kibble." The council chamber erupted into a chaos of translated exclamations. Professor HFY's spots pulsed rapidly as they restored order. "This is precisely why we've convened. The humans have achieved something unprecedented: voluntary cooperation with predator species through purely behavioral means." Marcus, standing beside Sarah, pulled up a new hologram on his tablet. "If I may." At the council's gesture of approval, he projected an image of a human child learning to walk while holding onto a patient Great Dane. This is just one example of how dogs adapt their behavior to human needs. They understand our vulnerabilities and adjust accordingly. The methane-breathing counselor's suit vented a thoughtful puff. "Are you suggesting these predators have developed emotional intelligence?" "They've developed empathy," Sarah corrected gently. "Both cats and dogs can recognize human emotions and respond appropriately. My Mr. Whiskers knows when I'm sad and will stay with me until I feel better." Professor HFY's spots took on the deep blue of scientific excitement. "Council members, I propose we establish a dedicated research division. The implications for evolutionary biology and interspecies cooperation are staggering. And it's not just cats and dogs," Marcus added, switching the display to show various human pets. "Humans have formed bonds with birds, fish, small mammals, and even reptiles. Each relationship is unique and offers different benefits to both species." A junior researcher, their crystalline form shimmering with curiosity, raised an appendage. "But how do you determine which species are suitable for companionship?" Sarah smiled. "That's just it. Humans have found ways to bond with all sorts of animals. Some people keep fish for relaxation. Others train parrots for companionship. My neighbor has a bearded dragon that watches television with her." The council chamber went completely still. "Your species allows reptilians near your entertainment systems." The translator struggled to convey the mix of horror and fascination in the counselor's harmonic patterns. "We've learned that every creature has its own way of showing affection," Marcus explained. "It's about understanding and respecting their natural behaviors while building trust." Professor HFY's spots settled into the pattern, indicating a formal proposal. "I recommend we establish a comprehensive study program. We need to understand how humans achieve these relationships and what it might mean for galactic society." The council's approval was nearly unanimous, though several members maintained their distance from the human students. As the meeting concluded, Professor HFY approached Sarah and Marcus with their spots showing a new pattern, one that their species had never needed before, but which closely resembled human excitement. "Would you be willing," they asked carefully, "to help us design the research parameters, and perhaps arrange some controlled observations of your companions?" Sarah and Marcus exchanged grins. "Professor," Sarah said warmly, "I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, which, by the way, is another concept we learned from our pets." Emily Watson stood at the front of the classroom, her gentle smile contrasting with the tension that had seized the room. After the success of the Research Council meeting, the Academy had prepared specialized safety protocols for her presentation. Several emergency containment fields hummed quietly on standby. "Everyone," she began softly, "I'd like you to meet Noodle." The holoscreen activated, showing a ball python draped contentedly across her shoulders. The image was carefully chosen to be as non-threatening as possible, but it still triggered 3 different species' ancestral fear responses. "Please maintain calm," Professor HFY urged, their spots shifting to a soothing shade of blue. "Remember, we are scientists first." Despite their words, they unconsciously drifted toward their emergency evacuation pod. Emily carefully pulled up another image, this one showing Noodle coiled up in a perfect spiral, fast asleep in her favorite basking spot. Ball pythons are one of the gentlest snake species we've ever encountered. They're shy, peaceful, and incredibly patient. Noodle here has never shown aggression toward anyone. The crystalline delegation's facets flickered with skepticism. Your species willingly cohabits with constricting serpents. Our historical records indicate that such creatures were universal predators of early sentient species. That's what makes this so fascinating, Emily explained, switching to a video of her handling Noodle. The snake was exploring her arms with gentle curiosity, tongue flicking out to sense her surroundings. Humans learn to understand and respect snakes. We studied their behavior, their needs, and their personalities. Personalities. The translator struggled with the concept. You attribute individual characteristics to reptilians. Emily nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. Noodle, for example, loves warm cups of tea. Well, the outside of them. She'll coil around my mug while I'm studying. She showed a clip of exactly that, the snake contentedly wrapped around a steaming cup while Emily worked on her quantum physics homework. Professor Zix-Vaughn's spots showed an unprecedented pattern of confusion and intrigue. You permit a constricting predator near your vital sustenance. It's more like she permits me to share her warm spot, Emily laughed. Ball pythons are actually quite shy. In the wild, they curl into a ball when threatened. That's how they got their name. They'd rather hide than fight. The Methane brothers' suits wear it as they process this information. One of them cautiously raised an appendage. But the thermal imaging shows the serpent is fully aware of your vital organs. How do you maintain trust? Emily's expression softened. That's just it. Trust goes both ways. Noodle trusts me to maintain her habitat, feed her properly, and keep her safe. In return, she's gentle and affectionate in her own way. She pulled up one final video, showing Noodle helping a young patient at a rehabilitation center. The snake was gently draped across the child's shoulders, providing deep pressure therapy while they worked on mobility exercises. The room fell silent. You see, Emily continued into the quiet, snakes like Noodle can help people. The pressure of their weight can be calming, and their slow, steady movements can help reduce anxiety. They never judge, never rush, and always live in the moment. A small gelatinous student, who had been hovering near the back of the room, suddenly flowed forward. The serpent helps heal. Their translator harmonics held a note of wonder. In her own way, yes. Emily smiled warmly. Every animal has something to teach us, if we're willing to learn. Even the ones that scared our ancestors can become friends once we understand them. Professor Zix-Vaughn's spots had settled into a completely new pattern, one that their species would later catalog as paradigm shift. Miss Watson, they said carefully, would you be willing to arrange a controlled demonstration? Under proper safety protocols, of course. Emily's face lit up. Professor, I think Noodle would be delighted to help expand the galaxy's understanding of human-reptile friendships. Though fair warning, she might try to use your environmental pod as a basking spot. Professor Zix-Vaughn's office had transformed over the past few weeks. Holograms of Earth animals covered the walls, and their data screens displayed endless streams of research notes. Their color spots hadn't settled into a single shade for days, flickering between excitement and deep concentration as they compiled their findings. Computer, they hummed, their translator working smoothly after weeks of practice with human terms. Add new section. The evolution of human-animal cooperation in space exploration. A gentle chime acknowledged the command as Sarah entered the office, Mr. Whiskers visible on her tablet screen via live feed from Earth. The cat was sprawled across her family's kitchen counter, monitoring their breakfast preparation with typical feline authority. Professor, I brought those historical records you requested, Sarah said, setting down a data crystal. It's fascinating stuff. Everything from ancient Egyptian cat statues to the first dog in space. Professor Zix-Vaughn's spots brightened. Excellent. My preliminary paper is already challenging several fundamental assumptions about predator-prey relationships. Did you know that humans have documented over 4,000 years of cat behavior in their art and literature? The holoscreen displayed a timeline, showing the progression of domestic animals from Earth to the first space colonies. The most remarkable aspect, the professor continued, their spots taking on a scholarly bronze, is how these relationships adapted to new environments. Sarah nodded enthusiastically. Like the therapy animals on the lunar colonies, dogs and cats helped the first settlers deal with isolation and stress. Some scientists even think their presence helped prevent space adaptation syndrome. Precisely. The professor's spots formed the newly catalogued Eureka pattern. But it's more than that. Look at these statistics. They pulled up a new data set, showing decreased anxiety levels and increased social bonding in space stations with animal companions. A soft chime announced Marcus's arrival. Luna's feeding time was programmed into his tablet schedule, and the screen showed her waiting patiently by her bowl back on Earth. "Sorry I'm late," he said, "but I brought those training logs you wanted, Professor." Professor Zixvon quickly added the new data to their growing collection. The implications are staggering. Your species didn't just domesticate animals for practical purposes. You created a completely new form of emotional symbiosis. The holoscreen shifted to show Emily's latest session with Noodle, where the ball python had calmly allowed a group of gelatinous students to study her thermal signature from a safe distance. The recording showed their initially fearful ripples gradually settling into patterns of scientific interest. "What fascinates me most," the professor mused, their spots swirling thoughtfully, "is how these relationships continue to evolve. Each species brings different benefits to the partnership." They gestured to their compiled research. Cats provide emotional support and pest control. Dogs offer protection and assistance. Snakes help with therapeutic applications. And all of them seem to help humans remain connected to their evolutionary roots. Sarah smiled as Mr. Whiskers stretched luxuriously on her tablet screen. "It's like having a piece of Earth's wilderness in our homes, but one that loves us back." "That's it exactly." Professor Zixvon's spots blazed with excitement. "Your species has managed to forge meaningful connections with creatures that most civilizations would consider threats. You've turned predators into family members without diminishing their essential nature." The professor pulled up their draft paper, titled Deathworlders Symbiosis: How Human-Animal Bonds Redefine Interspecies Relationships. The abstract already had the Academy's research board buzzing with interest. "There's one thing I still don't understand," they admitted, their spots showing a mix of curiosity and confusion. "How do you explain the phenomenon of talking to your pets in silly voices?" The linguistic analysis alone is fascinating. Sarah and Marcus exchanged glances and laughed. "Professor," Sarah said warmly, "I think that might need to be a separate paper entirely. Though if you really want to understand it, maybe it's time you considered getting a pet of your own." Professor Zixvon's spots flickered in surprise, then settled into a pattern of thoughtful consideration. Perhaps, they thought, some research required a more personal approach. The morning sun painted long shadows across the Global Animal Sanctuary's Welcome Center as the Academy's transport pods touched down. Professor Zixvon had spent weeks arranging this field trip, ensuring each alien student had appropriate environmental protection and safety measures, while allowing for maximum observation opportunities. "Welcome to Earth," Sarah announced, standing beside the sanctuary's chief veterinarian, Dr. Maria Rodriguez. The alien students emerged from their pods, their various environmental suits and containment fields humming quietly in Earth's atmosphere. "Today," Dr. Rodriguez began, her voice warm and professional, "you'll witness something unique in the galaxy, a facility where humans and animals work together to heal each other." She gestured toward the sprawling complex behind her, where the morning activities were already in full swing. The first stop was the Bird Rehabilitation Center. Through specially designed observation windows, the alien students watched in amazement as injured raptors worked with human handlers. A young woman was guiding a red-tailed hawk through physical therapy. The massive predatory bird perched calmly on her gloved hand. "Notice how the hawk maintains eye contact with its handler," Professor Zixvon pointed out, their spots showing the now familiar pattern of scientific excitement. "The trust goes both ways." The methane-breathing students' suits whirred in surprise when the hawk gently accepted treats from the handler's fingers. The same powerful beak that could easily crush small bones was being used with delicate precision. Moving to the Marine Center, they observed a dolphin therapy session. A child with mobility challenges floated in a specially designed support system, while a bottlenose dolphin named Echo swam gentle circles around them, occasionally offering a fin to hold. "The dolphin is choosing to participate," Dr. Rodriguez explained, noting the amazement in the alien students' various biological indicators. "They're incredibly intelligent and empathetic. Echo can sense when someone needs extra gentleness or encouragement." The crystalline delegation's facets sparkled with interest as they recorded the dolphin's sophisticated echolocation patterns. "They communicate with the humans?" one asked. "In their own way," Sarah responded. "Different species connect differently. Watch this." They moved to the next area, where therapy dogs were working with elderly patients. A massive Great Dane was moving with exquisite care beside a woman using a walker, while a golden retriever sat patiently with a group practicing memory exercises. The gelatinous students, who had initially kept their distance from all Earth fauna, found themselves drawn closer to observe. The canines appear to be providing both physical and psychological support, one noted, their translator harmonics carrying a tone of wonder. Professor Zixvan's spots formed complex patterns as they documented everything. "The implications for interspecies rehabilitation are extraordinary," they hummed. "Each animal seems to intuitively understand human needs." The tour continued to the Exotic Animal Rehabilitation Center, where Emily was helping with a presentation about rescued reptiles. Several alien students who had once fled from her snake now watched in fascination as she demonstrated proper handling techniques with a recovered ball python. "The key," Emily explained, "is respecting each animal's natural behaviors while building trust." The python draped peacefully across her shoulders, tongue flicking occasionally to sense its surroundings. The day's highlight came in the sanctuary's education center, where the aliens witnessed something unprecedented: multiple species of Earth animals and humans working together in harmony. A therapy cat purred on a child's lap while they read to a patient dog. A trained parrot mimicked encouragement to a group learning vocal exercises. "I believe," Professor Zixvan announced, their spots showing a completely new pattern of understanding. "We have been thinking about interspecies relationships too narrowly. The human approach suggests possibilities we never considered." A small crystalline student, who had been quietly observing everything, finally spoke through their translator. "Perhaps the truly remarkable thing is not that humans tame these creatures, but that they learn to meet them halfway." Dr. Rodriguez smiled warmly. "That's exactly it. Every animal here has something to teach us. Sometimes the best therapy isn't about changing someone, but about accepting them exactly as they are." The Academy's main hall had undergone a remarkable transformation. Where once sterile walls displayed only star charts and molecular diagrams, now holophotos of Earth animals shared space with traditional xenobiological studies. Professor Zixvan stood proudly beside their latest installation, a dedicated Earth Animal Study Center, complete with climate-controlled observation areas. 2 months ago, they addressed the assembled crowd, their spots glowing with professional satisfaction. "Many of us believed that coexistence with predator species was impossible. Today we open a new chapter in xenobiological studies." Sarah sat in the front row, her tablet propped up to show Mr. Whiskers watching the ceremony from Earth. The massive Maine Coon had become something of a celebrity among the Academy's students, his regal bearing and gentle temperament helping bridge the gap between alien fear and understanding. "Our research has already yielded extraordinary insights," Professor Zixvan continued, their translator perfectly conveying their enthusiasm. "We've documented over 50 unique ways that humans and animals communicate without sharing a common language." The holoscreen behind them displayed highlights from the past 2 months. Marcus and Luna demonstrating advanced training techniques, Emily's breakthrough sessions with the gelatinous students, and even some of the professor's own tentative interactions with the therapy dog. But perhaps most significantly, they added, their spots shifting to a thoughtful blue, we've had to reconsider our definition of intelligence itself. Earth's animals have shown us that emotional intelligence can be just as valuable as analytical capabilities. The Methan brothers' suits hummed in agreement. Several of them had become regular visitors to the sanctuary's bird rehabilitation center, fascinated by the complex social behaviors of parrots and corvids. Therefore, Professor Zixvon announced, their spots brightening, the Academy is proud to introduce our new curriculum, Integrative Species Relations, learning from Earth's example, and to demonstrate our commitment to this field. They gestured to a newly installed aquarium system, where a small goldfish swam contentedly among carefully selected plants. Meet Hope, they said, their spots showing a mix of pride and slight nervousness. My first step into understanding human-animal bonds personally. The assembled crowd murmured in surprise. A senior member of the Academy choosing to cohabitate with an Earth creature was unprecedented. The crystalline delegation's facets sparkled with interest as they recorded the historic moment. I've learned, the professor continued, their spots shifting to a warm purple, that sometimes the best way to understand a phenomenon is to experience it. Hope may be small by Earth standards, but watching her swim has already taught me much about finding peace in simple moments. Sarah smiled as Mr. Whiskers stretched lazily on her tablet screen, causing several nearby alien students to lean in for a better look. What had once triggered panic now drew curious observation. One of the gelatinous students had even started a research project on cat purring frequencies. Looking ahead, Professor Zixvon concluded, we've approved plans for a dedicated animal interaction space, designed with input from Earth's top veterinarians and xenobiologists. While maintaining all necessary safety protocols, we'll offer supervised opportunities for interested students to experience these relationships firsthand. Marcus grinned as he pulled up a live feed of Luma helping at a children's reading program back on Earth. The German Shepherd's gentle patience with young readers had inspired a whole new field of study on interspecies teaching methodologies. We stand at the beginning of a new era in galactic relations. The professor's spots showed their newly developed optimism pattern, one where we learn not just from each other's technologies or sciences, but from the very bonds we forge with other species. As if to punctuate their words, Mr. Whiskers chose that moment to let out a loud purr through Sarah's tablet. The sound, once terrifying to the alien students, now brought smiles, or their species equivalents, to many faces. After all, Professor Zixvon concluded, watching Hope swim peaceful circles in her aquarium, if humans can turn ancient predators into beloved companions, imagine what other bridges we might build across the stars.